Well, hello there everyone. Welcome back to our channel where we explore everything theme park and attraction related across the globe. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, then do feel free to do so. It is free of charge and we really would appreciate your support. Press that notification bell also to not miss any upcoming videos in the future.
Yeah, I had that David Beckham in here the other day.
Oh yeah? We just met him. And Kim Kardashian.
Now, I'm sure you've all heard of the famous Madame Tussauds wax museum. However, have you ever heard of the person who created it? Well, in this video, we're going to dive into the fascinating life of the artist that was Marie Tussaud. So we really do hope you enjoy this video. Sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Now, I'm pretty certain when you hear the name Madame Tussauds, you probably think of celebrity selfies and lifelike wax figures. But behind that global brand was a woman who survived revolution, imprisonment, financial hardship, and built one of the world's most enduring entertainment empires. This is the story and life of Marie Tussaud. Marie Tussaud was born Marie Grosholz in the year of 1761 in Strasbourg, France. Her father died before she was even born. Her mother worked as a housekeeper for a Swiss physician and wax modeler named Philippe Curtius. Curtius wasn't just a doctor, he had mastered the art of anatomical wax modeling, originally used for medical education. But he discovered something unexpected. He realized the public was fascinated by realistic wax figures, and Curtius began creating portraits of famous individuals, and young Marie watched. She learned and she practiced. By her early teens, she was sculpting independently. In the year of 1770, Curtius moved to Paris, bringing Marie with him. Paris, as we know it as Paris, was the cultural centre of Europe, and the pair began exhibiting wax portraits of famous public figures. Marie sculptured philosophers like Voltaire and Rousseau, but then history intervened. The French Revolution erupted in 1789, and suddenly wax portraiture became political. Marie was ordered to create death masks of executed nobles, including King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Imagine the scene: freshly executed friars, molds taken from real faces, wax replicas displayed to a public gripped by fear and fascination. At one point, Marie herself was imprisoned and narrowly escaped execution. She survived, but the revolution changed everything. Curtius died in 1794, leaving his exhibition to Marie. At just 33 years old, she inherited not just wax figures, but a business. In 1802, Marie took a bold risk. She travelled to Britain to exhibit her collection. Originally, it was meant to be temporary, but war between Britain and France stranded her there, so she adapted. Instead of returning to France, she toured the British Isles for over 30 years. This is where her entrepreneurial brilliance shines. She wasn't just an artist, she was a showwoman. She understood public curiosity and she understood spectacle. She understood that people would pay to see royal figures, political leaders, and criminals. In fact, one of her most famous attractions became what later evolved into the Chamber of Horrors, featuring figures connected to crime and revolution. It was pretty controversial, but it drew crowds, and Marie wasn't just preserving history, she was commercializing it. In the year of 1835, Marie established a permanent exhibition in London's Baker Street. This became the foundation of Madame Tussauds. For the first time, her collection had a stable home, and she published memoirs to market her own story. She turned her personal history into part of the attraction, that modern branding long before branding was a concept. She died in 1850 at the age of 88, but by then, the foundation of a lasting institution had been built. Her sons continued the business and the empire expanded. Today, Madame Tussauds is a global brand. From London to New York to Asia, millions visit it annually. And what began as wax portraits of Enlightenment philosophers is now a pop culture phenomenon. The business evolved from royalty and revolution to film stars and music icons to interactive celebrity experiences, but the core idea remains the same, bringing the public face to face with fame. Marie understood something timeless. People are fascinated by proximity to power, celebrity, and notoriety, and she monetized that fascination. Marie Tussauds' life is a story of resilience and reinvention, from revolutionary Paris to industrial London. She navigated chaos with creativity, and more than 250 years after her birth, her name is still recognized worldwide to this day. Not because of one sculpture, but because she turned art into enterprise. So the next time you walk through Madame Tussauds and see crowds lining up for photos, remember the woman who once moulded history from wax in the shadow of the guillotine. When we talk about Marie Tussaud, it's easy to focus on the spectacle, but the real foundation of her success was technical mastery. Wax modelling in the 18th century was not a novelty craft, it was a science. Marie didn't just sculpt from imagination, she worked from life whenever possible. When sculpting a living subject, she would carefully measure the distance between the eyes, the angle of the jaw, and the shape of the cheekbones, and the curvature of the nose. Precision was key. Because wax, unlike marble, captures fine surface detail, skin texture, wrinkles, and even subtle asymmetry. For famous figures like Voltaire, she reportedly worked from life sittings. That gave her sculptures an uncanny realism. Before wax was ever poured, Marie would sculpt a full clay bust. This was the artistic stage. Clay allowed her to refine facial expression and likeliness. The clay model had to be perfect, because it would become the template for the mold itself. This stage could take days or even weeks, and it required deep anatomical understanding. Remember, she trained under a medical wax modeler. Accuracy was not optional. Once the clay bust was finished, plaster was applied over it to create a negative mold, and this process had to be done carefully to preserve detail. After the plaster hardened, the mold was removed in sections. The clay original would often be destroyed in the process, meaning the mold was everything. There was no second chances. The mold was then filled with molten beeswax mixed with other materials to improve durability. And the wax had to be heated to the right temperature. If it was too hot, detail would be lost, and if it was too cold, the air bubbles would form. So once poured, the wax cooled and hardened into a hollow cast. The hollow interior made the figure lighter and less prone to crackling. Marie paid special attention to the eyes. Glass eyes were individually made and inserted into the wax face. She believed the eyes were what made a figure feel alive. If they were even slightly misaligned, the illusion would collapse, and this obsession with realism became a defining feature of her exhibitions. Perhaps the most painstaking stage of the process was the hair. The hair was inserted strand by strand. Real human hair was also often used, and each strand was pushed into the wax using a heated needle. Imagine the patience required. A single head could take weeks on end, but this detail made the figures shockingly lifelike. Wax alone looks flat, so Marie used oil paints and pigments to add subtle colour variation. Blue undertones around the veins, rosy cheeks, and shadows under the eyes. She layered colour gradually to mimic real skin. The goal wasn't perfection, it was believability. So during the French Revolution, Mary's craft took a darker turn. She was tasked with creating death masks of executed individuals. This process was different and far more urgent. She would take a plaster mould directly from the deceased's face, and the plaster hardened quickly, capturing every single detail. Those moulds were then used to create wax replicas. These were displayed publicly, serving both as documentation and a form of propaganda. This gave her work historical weight. Her wax figures weren't interpretations, they were records of time. And interestingly, most early figures were not even fully made out of wax. Only the head and hands were wax. The body was often a wooden frame, stuffed with fabric and dressed in real clothing. Pretty eerie. This saved cost, however, and reduced structural issues. It also meant costumes became part of the attraction, and the real garments made figures feel even more authentic. Here's what made Marie different. As a whole, many artists mastered wax modelling, but Marie understood the presentation behind it. She arranged figures in dramatic scenes, she grouped political leaders together, and she staged criminals in eerie lighting, just as it is in the modern-day Madame Tussauds we see today. She turned static sculptures into immersive storytelling. In many ways, she pioneered experimental entertainment and created a story. Wax had advantages over marble or bronze. It captured microscopic detail, it could be painted realistically, it allowed faster production, and it felt disturbingly lifelike. In a pre-photography world, her figures were the closest that many people would ever come to seeing famous individuals. So she was, in effect, creating three-dimensional portraits in an era even before the camera existed.
Then we would move to moulding.
The modern wax figures in today's Madame Tussauds still follow many of her principles. They are still really detailed with the measurements of the features. There are multiple sittings to make sure the wax figure is absolutely precise. They also make sure that the skin tone layering is precise, and they really focus on the precision of the hair that is inserted to make it look as realistic as humanly possible. Technology has obviously improved, but the foundation is still Marie's method. Her craft was equal parts science, artistry, and patience. Marie Tussaud didn't just mould wax, she moulded perception. In a world without photography, she made fame tangible, and she did it with molten wax, steady hands, and an extraordinary understanding of what fascinates human beings. I personally absolutely love the Madame Tussauds wax museums, and I cannot wait to visit it again pretty soon. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of Marie Tussaud, then feel free to subscribe to our channel, where we cover everything from lost attractions to our modern day industry that we have today. So thank you very much for being here, and see you next time on the channel. Take care as always, and bye bye for now.